When a legendary boxer confronts a racist cop in a supermarket, tensions ignite into a dramatic showdown that exposes systemic injustice. Watch as Mike Tyson's calm courage flips the script on abuse of power, leaving viewers inspired and outraged. This isn't just a fight. It's a stand for justice that will leave you questioning who the real heroes are. Stay tuned to witness how one man's actions spark a movement. Trust me, you won't believe how this ends. But before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. On a quiet Saturday afternoon in Austin, Texas, the sun shone brightly over the small neighborhood supermarket. Mike Tyson, the legendary former heavyweight boxing champion, walked into the store wearing a simple white t-shirt, black sweatpants, and sneakers. His muscular frame was unmistakable, but his demeanor was calm and unassuming. To the casual observer, he blended seamlessly into the crowd of ordinary shoppers picking up groceries for the weekend. No one could have guessed that this man, once known as the baddest man on the planet, had spent decades fighting not only in the ring, but also against societal prejudices as a black man in America. Tyson enjoyed these rare moments of solitude, away from the spotlight and the weight of his storied past. For him, it was a chance to reflect and recharge after years of battling both external adversaries and internal demons. But little did he know, this seemingly peaceful afternoon would soon turn into a confrontation that would test his resolve, courage, and principles. As he strolled down the aisles, selecting items with deliberate care, the tranquility of the moment was shattered by an act of arrogance and irresponsibility, a clash that would expose deep-seated issues of racism and abuse of power. The arrogant policeman, a catalyst for conflict. At the far end of the aisle, Officer Derek Collins stood tall in his crisp police uniform, exuding an air of superiority that seemed out of place in the otherwise mundane setting of the supermarket. A towering figure with broad shoulders and a stern expression, Collins appeared to command attention wherever he went. Yet, beneath his polished exterior lay a man riddled with complacency and disdain for those he deemed beneath him, particularly people of color. His reputation preceded him. Stories of his condescending attitude and blatant discrimination against black individuals had circulated quietly among the community, whispered in hushed tones, but never openly challenged. As Tyson browsed the shelves nearby, Collins accidentally knocked over a stack of canned goods, sending them clattering to the floor. Without hesitation, he glanced at the mess, shrugged indifferently, and turned to walk away, leaving the scattered cans where they lay. It was a small act, yet it spoke volumes about his character, an embodiment of negligence and entitlement. For someone like Collins, such actions were not mere oversights, but reflections of a deeper belief that rules and responsibilities applied to others, not to him. His dismissive behavior was emblematic of a larger pattern, a refusal to acknowledge accountability or show basic respect to those around him, especially if they belonged to marginalized communities. This moment of indifference set the stage for what would become an explosive confrontation between two vastly different men, one rooted in justice, the other in prejudice. A voice of reason ignites tension. Mike Tyson paused mid-step, his sharp eyes narrowing as he watched Officer Collins casually stroll away from the mess he had created. The former boxer's jaw tightened, his muscles tensing beneath his shirt. He couldn't let this slide, not when it symbolized everything he had fought against throughout his life. With measured steps, Tyson approached the officer, his voice steady but firm. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his tone carrying the weight of authority, earned through years of resilience and discipline. You dropped some items back there. It's important to clean it up so no one gets hurt. Collins turned slowly, his face twisting into a sneer as his gaze landed on Tyson. Recognition flickered in his eyes, followed by a flash of contempt. "Oh, look who's here," he drawled, his voice dripping with mockery. "The washed-up boxer thinks he can tell me what to do? What makes you think your opinion matters?" His words hung heavy in the air, laced with thinly veiled racism. Tyson's chest rose with a deep breath, his fists instinctively clenching at his sides. "It's not about my opinion," he replied, his voice cutting through the tension like steel. "It's about doing the right thing. You're wearing that uniform, and people are watching. How you act reflects on all of us." Collins scoffed, stepping closer until he loomed over Tyson. "Listen, boy," he spat, his tone venomous. "I don't answer to thugs like you. Maybe you should stick to throwing punches instead of pretending you understand responsibility." The insult hit hard, striking a nerve buried deep within Tyson. Memories of being dismissed, belittled, and stereotyped flooded his mind, the same biases that had haunted him since childhood. His dark eyes burned with anger, but he forced himself to remain composed. "This isn't about me," he said, his voice low but unwavering. "It's about respect, for everyone. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be wearing that badge." The surrounding shoppers began to notice the escalating tension. Some stopped in their tracks, while others pulled out their phones to record the scene. Whispers rippled through the crowd, blending curiosity with unease. Tyson felt the weight of their stares, but his focus remained locked on Collins. This wasn't just a personal affront. It was a challenge to the values he held dear, and he wasn't backing down. Subscribe to the channel, share the video, and write in the comments what city you were from. Rising tensions and racial insults. The supermarket aisle became a battleground of words as Collins leaned in further, his face inches from Tyson's. "You really think you're something special, don't you?" he snarled, his voice rising above the murmurs of the crowd. "Just because you used to knock people out in a ring doesn't mean you get to lecture me. You're nothing but a glorified brute, a relic of the past." His lips curled into a cruel smirk, his eyes scanning the growing audience before landing back on Tyson. "And let's not forget where you come from. People like you don't belong telling people like me how to behave." Tyson's body stiffened, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to strike. The racial undertones of Collins' words cut deeper than any physical blow ever could. It wasn't just an attack on him. It was an assault on his identity, his heritage, and the struggles of countless others who had faced similar prejudice. His hands balled into fists, veins pulsing visibly beneath his skin. Yet, even as fury surged within him, Tyson's voice remained eerily calm. "People like me?" he echoed, his tone icy. "You mean black people? Is that what this is about? Because if it is, you're showing exactly why people lose faith in cops like you." Collins laughed derisively, the sound grating against the tense silence. "Oh, here we go," he jeered, spreading his arms theatrically. "Playing the race card already? Typical. Always blaming everyone else for your problems. Maybe if you'd stayed in line, you wouldn't be standing here trying to act tough." The crowd gasped audibly, some shaking their heads in disbelief, while others clenched their fists in solidarity with Tyson. One elderly woman muttered under her breath, "Shameful," her voice trembling with indignation. A young black man filming the altercation nodded fervently, muttering, "Say it, Mike. Don't let him get away with this." Tyson's chest heaved as he took a step forward, his towering frame now casting a shadow over Collins. "You want to talk about staying in line?" he growled, his voice vibrating with controlled rage. Maybe you should start by respecting the badge you wear. Or are you too busy using it to bully people who don't look like you? Collins's smirk faltered for a split second, but he quickly masked it with another wave of arrogance. Bully? Me? He shot back, pointing a finger at Tyson's chest. I'm enforcing the law, something you wouldn't know anything about, given your history. The jab stung, dredging up memories of Tyson's legal troubles and public humiliations. But instead of crumbling, he straightened his posture, his eyes blazing with defiance. My past doesn't change the fact that you're wrong, he said, his voice slicing through the air. And if you keep pushing, you'll see exactly what I'm capable of. Escalation and confrontation. The atmosphere in the supermarket grew electric, the air thick with tension, as Collins's hand drifted toward the holster at his side. His fingers brushed against the grip of his service weapon, a silent threat that sent a ripple of fear through the crowd. You better watch your mouth, he hissed, his voice low and menacing, or I might have to teach you a lesson about respect. Tyson's instincts kicked in immediately. Years of training in the ring had honed his reflexes, and he recognized the danger before Collins could act. In one fluid motion, Tyson stepped back, creating space between them, and raised his hands slightly, not in surrender, but in preparation. Go ahead, pull it, he challenged, his voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. But you'll regret it. The crowd collectively held its breath, phones still recording as the standoff intensified. Collins hesitated, his confidence wavering under Tyson's unwavering gaze. Sensing the moment of vulnerability, Tyson seized the opportunity. With lightning speed, he closed the distance between them, his movements precise and calculated. Before Collins could react, Tyson delivered a swift, powerful strike to the officer's wrist, disarming him with a technique perfected during his martial arts training. The gun clattered to the floor, skidding across the linoleum tiles as gasps erupted from the onlookers. Collins staggered backward, clutching his injured wrist, shock etched across his face. But Tyson wasn't finished. Using his superior strength and agility, he maneuvered behind the officer, pinning his arm securely in a hold that left no room for resistance. This is what happens, Tyson growled into Collins's ear, his voice resonating with authority. When you abuse your power, you picked the wrong fight today. The crowd erupted into cheers, their applause echoing through the supermarket. Some shouted words of encouragement, while others simply stared in awe at the man who had dared to stand up to tyranny. Tyson released Collins, stepping back with an air of calm triumph. His chest rose and fell with exertion, but his expression remained resolute. Justice had been served, not with violence, but with precision and purpose. A community united. As Tyson stepped back from the subdued Collins, the supermarket erupted into a cacophony of applause and cheers. Strangers exchanged nods of approval, their faces glowing with pride and admiration for the man who had just stood up to systemic injustice. Among the crowd, a middle-aged black woman wiped tears from her eyes, whispering to her teenage son, "That's what real strength looks like, standing up for what's right, even when it's hard." Nearby, a group of young men fist-bumped each other, their voices rising in chants of "Mike, Mike," as they celebrated the victory, not just for Tyson, but for everyone who had ever felt powerless against oppression. The significance of the moment was palpable. For many in the crowd, particularly those from marginalized communities, Tyson's actions were more than a personal triumph. They were a beacon of hope. An elderly Latino man, leaning on his cane, raised his fist in solidarity, his weathered face breaking into a rare smile. Finally, he muttered, his voice thick with emotion. Someone showed that badge doesn't make you untouchable. Even those who had initially hesitated to intervene now joined in, their earlier fear replaced by a collective sense of empowerment. A white woman holding her phone aloft to record the scene turned to her companion and said firmly, "We need more people like him. Someone willing to say enough is enough." The shared sentiment rippled through the crowd, binding them together in a moment of unity and defiance against the injustices they had silently endured for far too long. Tyson stood at the center of it all, his chest still heaving, but his demeanor calm. He scanned the faces around him, seeing not just admiration, but a spark of determination igniting in their eyes. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the message he had sent, that power, when wielded responsibly, could protect and uplift, but when abused, would always be met with resistance. The mayor's arrival and justice served. The arrival of Mayor Lisa Hartley sent a ripple of anticipation through the already charged atmosphere. Her presence commanded immediate attention as she strode into the supermarket with an air of authority, flanked by additional officers. Hartley's sharp gaze swept over the scene, taking in the disarmed Collins, the scattered crowd, and Tyson standing tall amidst the chaos. She wasted no time addressing the situation. "What happened here?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the lingering tension. Before Collins could speak, Tyson stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Officer Collins abused his power, made racist remarks, and attempted to escalate the situation with violence. There are witnesses and recordings to confirm everything. Hartley's expression hardened as she turned to Collins, who was now visibly pale and sweating. "Is this true?" she asked, her tone leaving no room for evasion. When Collins stammered incoherently, Hartley signaled to the officers beside her. "Strip him of his badge and weapon immediately. He will face a full investigation, and if found guilty, appropriate charges will follow." The crowd erupted into applause once again, their cheers underscoring the gravity of the moment. Hartley then addressed Tyson directly, her voice softening with respect. "Mr. Tyson, thank you for standing up today. Your courage reminds us all of the importance of accountability and integrity. This city owes you a debt of gratitude." Tyson nodded solemnly, his eyes reflecting both relief and resolve. "Thank you, Mayor. But this isn't just about me. It's about ensuring that no one else has to endure what so many of us have faced. Justice must prevail, not just today, but every day." The ripple effect of courage. In the weeks following the supermarket incident, the story of Mike Tyson's confrontation with Officer Collins spread like wildfire, igniting conversations far beyond Austin. News outlets nationwide covered the event, framing it not merely as an isolated act of bravery, but as a pivotal moment in the ongoing struggle against systemic racism and police misconduct. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like "Stand with Tyson" and "Justice for All," amplifying voices from marginalized communities who saw themselves reflected in his courage. Videos of the altercation amassed millions of views, accompanied by comments praising Tyson's composure and conviction. Activists seized the moment, organizing rallies and forums to discuss accountability in law enforcement, often inviting Tyson to share his perspective. Locally, the impact was even more profound. The Austin Police Department, under mounting public pressure, announced sweeping reforms to its recruitment and training processes. Officers were required to undergo sensitivity training, focusing on racial bias and ethical conduct. Seminars led by civil rights advocates became mandatory, with Tyson delivering a keynote address at one such event. Standing before a packed auditorium, he spoke not of vengeance, but of responsibility. Power isn't meant to intimidate, it's meant to protect, he declared, his voice resonating with quiet authority. If we don't hold ourselves accountable, who will? Meanwhile, Collins's downfall unfolded publicly and painfully. Stripped of his badge, he faced criminal charges for abuse of power and attempted assault. Former colleagues distanced themselves, and friends abandoned him as the weight of his actions sank in. In contrast, Tyson emerged as a symbol of resilience and justice, inspiring countless individuals to speak out against inequality. His legacy wasn't defined by fame or accolades, but by the lives he touched and the changes he sparked, a testament to the enduring power of standing up for what is right. A legacy of resilience and change. Mike Tyson's journey from the boxing ring to becoming a symbol of justice and equality underscores a profound truth. True strength lies not in physical dominance, but in moral courage. His actions in the supermarket transcended the immediate confrontation, sparking a movement that challenged systemic inequities and inspired countless others to rise against injustice. Through workshops, speeches, and advocacy, Tyson reminded society that power must serve, not oppress, and that accountability is the cornerstone of progress. His legacy lives on, not in trophies or titles, but in the hearts of those he empowered to believe in their ability to effect change. For Tyson, this was never about personal glory. It was about building a fairer, more equitable world, one courageous step at a time. Grateful to have you here. Which part of the world are you watching from? And please leave your thoughts on the message I want to convey. Mike Tyson's courageous stand against Officer Collins teaches us that true strength lies in confronting injustice with calmness and integrity. His actions remind us to hold ourselves accountable, challenge abuse of power, and stand up for marginalized voices. In today's world, we must address systemic racism and inequality by fostering empathy, respect, and accountability. Tyson's story encourages us to use our influence responsibly, ensuring power serves the community rather than oppressing it. It inspires collective action, urging individuals to speak out against discrimination and support reforms that promote fairness. By embracing courage and resilience, we can create a society where justice prevails and everyone is treated with dignity. Tyson's legacy proves that even small acts of defiance can spark meaningful change.
If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe Undercover Insights channel.